Welcome back to the Net podcast. I'm your host, Sam Kelty. Um, and today is an episode of college football / NFL. It's the off season for both college and NFL, and we're looking at my mock draft post combine. So the combine happened this past weekend, starting Thursday all the way through Sunday, with some players working out, some players not working out, some people doing certain drills, and but all doing interviews and meeting with teams. So this is my draft going into post the combine. And here's what I'm looking at. So today we're going to spend, I might do the first 2 rounds live, and then after that, in our link, I'll put the link to my full 7 rounds. I'm not gonna do all 7 rounds with you guys live. That would probably take a couple of hours to do. And usually most people just care about the first 2 rounds. Really, even more just the first round. So I'm sitting here going with my draft, but this is no trades. Trades are just too hard to do just because there's so much going into it. So my first pick with the first round, number 1, Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams goes 1. Obviously, he is my number 1. I think with the Bears, you start fresh. You use this trade. You trade Justin Fields to get draft picks and draft capital in this draft to help build around Caleb Williams. Plus, you're on that rookie deal that you don't have to worry about. You start fresh. Ryan Pohl and Nate Ebris can start fresh with a new face. And Caleb Williams is obviously getting comparisons to Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes, which comparisons are really hard because you see flashes of certain players, but you don't get that full sense. For my second pick in the draft, either has to be between Drake May and Jaden Daniels. The Washington Commanders need a quarterback. We saw Sam Howell struggle. We saw that he was not the franchise quarterback. He was never going to be that franchise quarterback. There was flashes of him in college at North Carolina, and now we're looking back at another North Carolina quarterback in Drake May, who I could see potentially being someone big, like a Josh Allen 2.0, or someone like maybe a smaller Ben Roethlisberger. He was really good in the Holiday Bowl last year against Oregon. He was hitting his targets. He was so good last year. The question is, with the weapons around him, can he produce? Because he really didn't produce this year because his main receiver, Trez Walker, was just sitting out due to eligibility for most of the season. So he struggled with not having those weapons around him. But when we saw him last year with Josh Downs, he accelerated. He floored in that system. And then Jaden Daniels, what I gotta say, he's the Heisman Trophy winner. He had an unbelievable season. He could probably one of the best quarterbacks throw the deep ball, other than Joe Milton out of Tennessee, with the best arm, and J.J. McCarthy. But in this draft, right now, I think Drake May is the second best quarterback in this class, though it's close between him and Jaden Daniels. With that being said, at 3, I have New England taking Jaden Daniels. Yes, there's things about Patriots being linked to Kirk Cousins and Joe Flacco and Jacoby Brissett and Baker Mayfield, but I think right here in this situation, you have Marvin Harrison there, but the problem is you draft Marvin Harrison, you don't have a quarterback right now, and to win games you need a quarterback. So I'm going with Jaden Daniels at 3. Number 4 is probably the most obvious pick, is Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he's the best receiver, the best skill position in the draft. You've already committed to Kyler Murray. Give him weapons. You saw them get rid of Hopkins and Marquise Brown over the last couple of years. Yes, they do need tight end help. They do need running back help. They do need edge. They need all over the place, but I think they go best player available, and that is Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State. So here's where it gets interesting. I have two options for the Chargers. They take receiver or they take a tight end. Yes. The only reason I say receiver could be in play here is because you look at Mike Williams coming off I believe it was ACL surgery, and Keenan Allen, who really hasn't been healthy. But they also took Quentin Johnston last year in the draft in the first round. Didn't pan out for much, but I still think he could be something. So I would probably say if you can't go wrong here, but you also could use another tackle like Joe Alt or J.C. Latham or a Ola Fashoon or Talis Fuaga out of Oregon State. But I think right here with Jim Harbaugh, what he likes to run in his system, double tight ends, I think Brock Bowers is obviously, I think, more of need because they don't have that big body. Yes, you're losing Gerald Everett to the free agency upcoming, and I will have another mock draft coming out at post free agency because that's when the teams can go out and get people and then get whatever they need in the draft afterwards. But I think Brock Bowers goes 5. At 6, at 5, this is where it gets fun. I think fun. It's either between Malik Nabers from LSU or wide receiver Rome Odunze at Washington. I'm a huge fan of Rome Odunze. Being an Oregon fan, watching him twice a year in the Pac-12, he was unstoppable. Michael Penix Jr. was always fighting him. He's a big body. He can line up on the outside. They already have slot in Darius Slay, Jalen Hyatt, so they really don't need that receiver in the slot where Malik excelled last year. So I think right here is Rome Odunze. At 7, we're talking about a guy at the Tennessee Titans. We've already seen that they are going to commit to Will Levis as their quarterback this year. And Ryan Tannehill is going to be on the move. So what you need here is someone to protect Will Levis. And we saw last year Titans gave up a ton of sacks, a ton of pressure that went to Levis, and he got pummeled. He got sacked. He got hit every time he got rid of that ball, or he would keep it too long because he wouldn't have that protection from the offensive line. So right here, I think they take an offensive line. I think they take, who in my opinion, there's Ole Fashoon, who people have as the best offensive line. J.C. Latham can play right tackle. Pure right tackle. You have Fuaga, who I think is really good at Oregon State, but right now I think the best offensive tackle in the draft, in my opinion, from day one was Joe Alt. He's a big body. In the combine, he can move. I think Joe Alt right here helps the Tennessee Titans. At 8, I think the Falcons go out right now and take either an edge or receiver, depending on who's still available. If he is still available, I think you take Malik Nabers because outside of Drake London and outside of Kyle Pitts, you really don't have that second receiver to take pressure off of Drake London. I think there is a potential chance of trading up and getting like a Drake May or a Jane Daniels in the draft, but I feel like they might go. They've been linked to Kirk Cousins, and I think Kirk Cousins is probably going to be their quarterback next year. So right now, I think based on if they do go get Kirk Cousins, they need weapons, and Malik Nabers is, if he's available, go get him. Now this leaves with Chicago. If Malik Nabers is still available at 9, I think there's a chance that he goes and they give another weapon to Caleb. But right now, I think best available to someone to pair up with Montez Sweat is Dallas Turner. Dallas Turner, I think, is the best linebacker or edge rusher in this draft. A lot of people want to see Jared Verse by watching the tape, but I think Dallas Turner kind of cemented himself towards the end of the season, where Jared Verse kind of fell off at Florida State, and they were starting to double team because you can double team Dallas Turner and he still gets through the line very quickly. He's strong, he's speed. I think he's the best pick if he's available at the spot. Now with the Jets, they need a right tackle. They need a left tackle because Mekhi Becton is a free agent at the end of the season, so he'll be hitting free agency. So they do need a tackle. I think here, I do like Talais Fuaga more than I do Fashoon and J.C. Latham, just because Fuaga can play both left and right tackle, and he's a big dude. He is huge. I do like him a lot, so I think Fuaga goes to the Jets. At 11, this is where it gets interesting. I think you can go two ways here. Either you can go get a edge rusher that replaces Darrell Hunter because he is hitting free agency. I don't know if he'll be back. If they're going to commit to paying him, he is 28 years old, or they go with a quarterback at this position because there is a chance that they lose Kirk Cousins. I know they're still in talks about trying to get him back, but I don't know if he'll be back with the team next year. So I'm going it based off of what they need the most, and I think right now they need an edge rusher to replace Darrell Hunter because you can either get a stop quarterback like a bridge quarterback and then get one next year because there are some good quarterbacks out there coming out next year. But in this mock draft, I have Jared Verse going 11th to the Vikings. Now with Denver, with them cutting Russell Wilson and starting fresh, Sean Payton coming out and saying we're starting new. I think they go quarterback here, and he's been kind of rising up since the combine. JJ McCarthy, he threw, I believe it was like 96 miles an hour throw at the combine. He can throw it deep. He's got a lot of potential. I'm going with JJ McCarthy here at 12 to be the new franchise quarterback. And fun fact, this will be the first ever quarterback Sean Payton takes as being a head coach. He's never drafted a quarterback. He signed Drew Brees in free agency from San Diego to come to New Orleans all the way back in, 2005, 2006, I believe. So J.J. McCarthy goes 12. At 13, I think this is where it can get fun because there's so many different options what the the Las Vegas Raiders need. And I think Antonio Pierce either wants defense because you can't go wrong. There's a lot of good defensive cornerbacks, and that's really what they need. But they also need offensive line to help because they want to run the ball. And depending on if they bring back Josh Jacobs, he's going to want to kind of go back to that grit and grind, run the ball, run through the tackles, and run uphill against them. I could see Fashoon going here. I could see J.C. Latham going here. But for me, personally, I think they take the best player available, and I think they take Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo. I think he's risen up the draft board hugely from the combine. Probably one of the best, I think, the first cornerback off the board, perhaps, before Terrion Arnold, because we've seen Terrion Arnold, what he did at Alabama. He was kind of overshadowed by Kool-Aid McKinstry, but for me, I think Quinion Mitchell showed that he kind of put himself in this conversation being at number 13. Yes, I think they can't go wrong here. I think they go Quinion Mitchell. So then that leaves me with the Saints, and they need a tackle. We saw Andrews Peets not really work out there, and they kind of want to replace him at the left tackle. I think they do take Ole fashion. I think this is when he comes off the board. A lot of people might say, "Oh, J.C. Latham," but J.C. Latham is right in at Alabama, protecting Jalen Milroe and Buccaneer, who was the quarterback for a couple games. But I like Ole fashion because he can slot in the left tackle position for Andre Peets, where they desperately need in that situation. Yes, you could make an argument they go D line because yes, Cam Jordan is getting older. Like the likes of Byron Murphy still out there, Latu, who with now those injury concerns and him having to retire and then coming back might shy people away. So I think they go Ole fashion here. At number 15 with the Indianapolis Colts, they take cornerback. I think they take best player available. I think they take Terrion Arnold. I think, in my opinion, Terrion Arnold is the best cornerback, but best system he fits is more with Indianapolis than he did with Oakland. He can play in that slot, and he can line up as a Mike linebacker sometimes, play inside like that hybrid. I like Terrion Arnold. He can play in the slot, and he wasn't too bad playing on the outside, guarding those big receivers because he's physical. So I'm going with Terrion Arnold from the Indianapolis. They kind of need that because they got rid of Rockison last year, a couple of years, and they got rid of someone to bolster that secondary. Seattle is on the board now, and I think with Seattle, they could take an edge or a tackle. And if you look at John Snyder as a GM, 40% of the players he's taken in the draft have been offensive line. And I think right here is where you take an offensive line. And I like J.C. Latham here. I like him protecting Geno. You saw kind of last year, this year, Geno having a down year. That's because he had less time in the pocket to make a pass or to throw the ball to his skill players. And he has really good skill players. You have to give him time for the play to develop because you kind of saw Geno, once the play kind of broke down, he would just look at his first read and nothing really else, or try to check it down to one of his running backs. When you bring in a J.C. Latham who barely gave up a sack, I believe he gave up maybe 1 or 2 sacks, and that was in like probably the final game against Michigan. Outside of that, he was very solid all season, and that Alabama offensive line was really good. I would go often right tackle J.C. Latham. Yes, he has said that he wants to prove himself as a left tackle too, be more versatile. But I think getting him there for the Seattle Seahawks, that's what they need. At number 17 with Jacksonville, I have them going with the likes of a cornerback. We just saw recently today that Darius Williams was cut to save cap money, so they do need to replace him. And I think they take the third best cornerback in the draft, and that is Nate Wiggins. Yes, he did get injured during the combine, but I think there's a chance that he should be back. It won't be a long-term injury, and he should be back before offseason starts. After that pick, I have them taking with my Cincinnati Bengals. I think we're probably going to lose. We're probably going to lose Jonah Williams, so we need a tackle. And kind of watching him through the combine, Amarius Mims really showed that he can play. So I have the Bengals taking him at 18. And pairing him up on that offensive line, bolstering that offensive line, yes, you can make an argument that they could go younger in the inside with Jackson Powers, Johnson, but I think they really need that tackle. And Mims, being, I believe he's 6'7", 370, fits the bill right there to replace Jonah Williams. That's headed to free agency. At 19, it's between Latu and Byron Murphy at Texas and UCLA, respectively. For me, I think giving another edge, we saw them take Byron Young and Kobe Durant last couple years, and they have that edge rush. I think right here you pair someone up with maybe the next, probably the successor to Aaron Donald, and go Byron Murphy here. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, they need offensive line, they need corner, and they need linebackers. Those are the three main things. For me, right now, at the cornerback position is really where they need because you have a 34-year-old Patrick Peterson who played 1,000 snaps last year, and he has. I don't think he can do that again this year, being 34, going on 35. Yes, a lot of people say they need quarterback help, but outside of Drake May, the Drake Mays, and the Caleb Williams and the Jaden Daniels of the world, there's not much out there. Yes, you can go get a Bo Nix. Maybe he might be there in the second round that you can go out and get him, or a Michael Penix Jr. But I say give Kenny Pickett one more year under a new offensive coordinator and Arthur Smith, and I think it fits. So here I say they take Cooper DeJean. Yes, he is having injury. He has that knee, but he should be back by training camp. So I would take Cooper DeJean if he is available. Outside, and then maybe try to get an offensive line in the second or third round because this is a really heavy offensive line and skill positions, how deep it is. For the Miami Dolphins, I say they take, this is a no-brainer. I think they take Latu Latu. Latu is someone they could use because you're looking at a Jalen Phillips coming off an ACL, Achilles, and you're looking at Bradley Chubb coming off an ACL surgery. You need an edge rusher right now, and that's what Latu brings you. Yes, he has that injury concern, but if he's there and he stays healthy, he'd be a great fit for the Miami Dolphins. Yes, now you can talk about Jerome Baker being cut today, but there's a chance that he comes back on a cheaper deal, but that's no guarantee that he comes back. Yes, you can also make an argument they need offensive line help, but Latu is still there, and might get a good offensive line in the second or third round. Philadelphia, I think they need a cornerback, and the next best guy is Kool-Aid McKinstry. Yes, you can make an argument for they need an offensive line with the fact that Jason Kelce, a legend, is retiring. But they still have Cam Jurgensen, who they drafted last year, that they can slide in the center. They have Lander Dickerson, who played center in college. So I think they're fine there, and they go with Kool-Aid McKinstry because you saw their cornerbacks are pretty old. Darius Slay, James Bradbury, they are pretty older. You saw them cut Kevin Byard early on in the offseason. So Kool-Aid McKinstry just kind of fits the bill of what they need. Houston. I like Houston. I think what they do is they get someone inside to help with Will Anderson on the edge, and you saw a breakout season from Jonathan Grenard. So I like them going either inside with Jerzion Newton or they go Chomp Robinson out of Penn State, and I'm leaning towards Chomp Robinson and give Will Anderson some help on that D line. And if they go Chomp Robinson, I think that's a steal. For Dallas Cowboys, obvious pick, I got Troy Tunu from Washington. I did like Tyler Guyton in this situation too, but what I saw from the combine and what he measured at and what he did, I'm going with Troy Fontoon as your offensive tackle. For Green Bay, I think there's another tackle that comes off the board who I could see going at 24, Tyler Guyton as well. Trying to do the same thing, we saw David Bakhtiari having that injury history during the offseason come back. He does come back, but he is injury prone the last few years. Tampa Bay, I feel like Tampa comes here and gets some help at receiver positions. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans are getting older, and I see them taking the receiver that led the entire nation in touchdowns, and Brian Thomas. He's a deep outside threat, and I think that's what they need. And give whoever playing quarterback some help, and they go Brian Thomas here. For the Falcons, I say they need edge. They need kind of need to restructure that defense, and I think they take best player available and Jazur Newton out of Illinois. We saw him against Ohio State kind of wreck that offensive line. We saw him against Michigan here, so I would say Jazur Newton. For the Buffalo Bills, it could go either way here. They either could take receiver to replace the likes of Gabe Davis if he does leave in free agency. But since this is a heavy receiving class, I think they could risk letting it slide to the second round, and they getting the successor to Mitch Morris at center, who is a possibility of getting cut to save cap money and going Jackson Powers Johnson. He had a great combine. He can go anywhere from Pittsburgh to Buffalo in that range, depending on what the teams need. Like the Cowboys could use him, and so forth. So, but if he's there available for the Buffalo Bills, I say Jackson Powers. At 29, I think they really need cornerback help to help with who they have on that backside. And they kind of missed out on Jeff Okudah a couple years ago, taking him really high, and now he's no longer with the team. I think they take Anish Rake Straw Jr. out of Missouri. He played pretty well in the bowl game against Ohio State this year, keeping the receivers quiet, the skill receivers quiet. I think he's best available for them. With Baltimore, I think they get more receiver help. I don't think Odell Beckham's back after this year, so I think they go Keon Coleman, best available. He's big. He's a deep threat. You can kind of pretty much throw the ball up to him anywhere, and he'll go up and get it. He's really tall, very lanky. He's strong. He's physical. To round out with San Francisco, I think they go best player available, and I think that's Graham Barton, to be honest. Graham Barton, they need offensive line and offensive line help. They're getting older, so I think Graham Barton fits. He can play inside and he can play outside as well. And then rounding out the first round, I have the Kansas City Chiefs taking Troy Franklin. Troy Franklin, you can't go wrong with either Xavier Worthy, Troy Franklin, and Donovan Mitchell, but I think Troy Franklin kind of fits what Patrick Mahomes needs. He needs another outside threat, and Troy Franklin gives you that speed and gives you that quickness on the outside to beat a defender. And we saw that going over 1,000 yards this season at Oregon, leading the team in receptions and touchdowns, and he just fits the bill. So that kind of wraps up my first round mock draft of who I have going. I might continue this and give you my second round, maybe. I haven't really decided. I'm probably leaning towards just ending it here and letting you all kind of digest of what I have for my mock draft post-combine. And then I'll come out with another one post free agency. But I will, in the description, will link it to the website I use, and it'll have my entire 7 rounds. So I appreciate you guys listening. Trying to get more consistency with our videos, but this is my post combine mock draft round 1. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's certain players that you thought that should go higher, that should go to a certain team, or if you think a team needs something else. But yeah, leave those likes in the comments, subscribe on YouTube and Spotify, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter for up-to-date news and things like that. And keep a lookout for this episode. It'll probably be out in a day or two. Hopefully get a new soccer video out soon. I'm in the process of moving back to Ohio, so been kind of slow on the videos and releasing, but hopefully you guys enjoy, and soon we'll have some soccer. Try to get back on that NBA, college basketball wrapping up soon, and kind of we'll have an episode about March Madness coming out soon.